In God I trust. Now, I'm so bullish on XRP, I think I'm about to faint. Boom! A wild glitch just showed 700,000 per XRP on a live tracker. Glitch, error, or is the system telling us something early? Are we looking through the veil, right? That matrix veil, guys, where we actually see XRP's true value worth $600,000. Is that possible? When I see this price, guys, I honestly do think it's ridiculous, right? Maybe it'll happen in 100 years from now. But that's like two. If you have 2 XRP, you're a millionaire. So I think it is a little bit too crazy. But again, it depends on how big do you dream. I honestly think my prediction is XRP will hit 4 digits, right? 4 digits minimum is my prediction. But what is interesting is that was, again, XRP loves to glitch, right? He had a few of those glitches on DEX tools over the last months. XRP $1,000, $700, $1,600, 400 right there, right? So that's more doable, most definitely. Why? Because we're going to be talking about how XRP will explode, guys. I'm super bullish. It's absolutely just insanity. Now look at what once upon a time David Schwartz tweeted out. This is a very spectacular tweet from David Schwartz a long time ago in 2018. When XRP was less than a penny, you couldn't buy $1 million worth of XRP without buying slowly and waiting for liquidity to recover. Now you can buy $1 million worth very easily. So he's basically saying that when XRP was less than a penny, imagine buying then, number one, you couldn't buy $1 million worth of XRP because it would actually spike XRP's price to go higher, right? Because you're flooding a lot of liquidity, because you're pouring a lot of money into XRP, which will move it a good amount, I would think so, right? Especially when liquidity was thin. This is why they wanted retail, guys, right? To build up liquidity, if I'm not mistaken. Now you could buy $1 million worth very easily because it's not going to do S to price. And guess what? That's what the banks want. Okay, listen to this. Listen very carefully. The banks want to see XRP being more stable. It wants it not it becoming a stable coin, guys, but it's being more stable. I think it just means it's having more liquidity, right, into the system, which the banks want, because if they're moving so much money, liquidity has to be there, right? So XRP doesn't die. The same thing with Bitcoin, by the way, right? So fantastic, guys. Again, if you're in, I repeat, if you're in any other coin, this isn't financial advice, but please sell and literally go all in XRP. I'm not kidding. We said this for years. I'm just a fool because I messed the whole cycle up, but it's okay. But you shouldn't, because wild diversification is when investors do not know what they are doing. Warren Buffett, right? Literally, go sell every other coin you have, any S coin, altcoin, and just put it in XRP. If I'm you, that's what I'm doing. I'm not touching it at all. Now, why would you not want to sell? Never sell. Because imagine having your XRP sitting in Ripple custody, earning yield while they utilize it in giant liquidity pools, all while it's FDIC insured. This is just mind-boggling. Guys, imagine your XRP, right? You put it into Ripple custody, which is 100% safe, secure. And even if it's not, and something happens one day, it's FDIC. If it's FDIC insured, Ripple is going to become a bank. Now check this out. That XRP, you basically gift them, right? They're going to be using it in liquidity pools, and you'll be gaining a percentage because you're lending your XRP out, right? For a certain use case that they will need for more liquidity, and then you're just earning passive income. I don't know the percentage, but it's better than nothing. So imagine when XRP goes to $1,000. That's it. You don't need to do anything anymore, right? Passive income will be flooding into your bank account like never before. It's gonna get ridiculous, guys. Right? Wow. So, regulatory bodies like the Federal Reserve will continue to set and enforce regulatory standards. Messaging standards like SWIFT can be easily integrated into Ripple as well. So let's talk about what David Schwartz had to say. Looking ahead with David Schwartz, this just was posted by Ripple. So I watched the full thing, guys. We're going to go through a bit of what he talked about here. Point number 1, right here.
an exciting turning point.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think the big thing about this one was bringing like DeFi developers, people who are building software for mass adoption, grassroots, together with people who are looking to bring institutional tools to the XRP ledger to provide the next generation of DeFi. And that was just super exciting.
So our first question here is from Issa. What milestones are you hoping XRP achieves in the next 5 years?
Well, 5 years is a long time. I think we can get a lot done in 5 years. I think the big thing that we can probably accomplish in 5 years is just making the ecosystem feel like an ecosystem. People being able to, millions of people who have access to blockchain tools and who are potential customers for new DeFi solutions. 5 years is a long time. We could have mass enterprise adoption. We could have users who live their entire economic lives right on a blockchain.
Imagine just living right on the blockchain, right? It's literally the new world, guys, that is being built right before our eyes. Wow, I feel like fear of missing out, like I do, guys. I feel so much FOMO right now. Just learning about what XRP is, the XRP ledger, and what's happening behind the scenes. Your heart will race into wanting this liquid gold of XRP.
Looking at XRP specifically, I think we're going to have a long tail of assets with things like tokenized lending pools and tokenized real estate portfolios and fractional ownership. There's going to be an enormous number of assets, and people are going to need liquidity between them. So I think XRP could be that intermediary asset.
Exactly why there needs to be a lot of liquidity. Now, going back to that topic of buying 1 million XRP back in when it was a penny to now, I even said buying $1 million worth of XRP, it wouldn't do S to price. It wouldn't even move it like a percent higher, not even 0.1%. I don't think so, right? Because the liquidity is too big, guys. But that's what the banks want, right? That's what the ecosystem needs. And XRP will be the bridge asset to everything. So imagine all these services on the XRP ledger. There's only one way it will go up, and XRP is deflationary in its nature. I'm done. This is diabolical, David Schwartz.
We can accomplish a lot in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great to see. Our next question.
5 years? I mean, no, I'm thinking 2 years. Right? He even said 2027, I think. 2 years, somewhere here. I forgot. But let's go forward to 1545. Next point.
You had to build it yourself. You had to install the operating system yourself. In the early days of the internet, you had to edit DOS batch files with TCP/IP set. I mean, right? But the way you get early printers were terrible and broke down all the time. The way you get to mass adoption is when you solve a problem, and the user doesn't have to think about the how. Absolutely. Unless they really want to. We are definitely in the
exactly, which is why wallets need to be more efficient. Like, I'm not gonna go, or like a 90-year-old grandma isn't gonna go buy a ledger, write down her seed phrase on a piece of paper, then transfer her XRP from this exchange to the ledger, and then now she has to think about where to hide the piece of paper, where to put her ledger. There's just too much overthinking, right? Too much anxiety, which is why we need a retail solution to custody. Right, I think Ripple will do something like that in the near future. Remember, I think they will, in my honest opinion. The reason I don't think anyone has yet is because I think there's just too much risk involved there. But I think a government needs to back that idea for it to work out.
Enthusiast phase now, where it's very difficult to use blockchain products or services unless you very deeply understand how they work under the hood. Yeah. And we'll never get mass adoption that way.
Our next question.
Yep, everything needs to be seamless, easy, how everything is right now on the internet. But it takes time to get there, right?
Our next question is from Mike Richetts. So do you expect widespread adoption of the XRPL to be closer to 1, 3, or maybe 5 years? What does that widespread adoption look like? And is the XRPL infinitely scalable versus, say, 1,500 TPS?
Well, I think we're going to see widespread adoption over all of those timeframes. I think over the next year, you're going to see a lot of institutional adoption, bringing a lot of big dollar numbers, but not necessarily a lot of activity. But I think that's going to enable the sort of widespread adoption over the 3 to 5 year timeframe. I think you're going to see the next wave of DeFi applications that solve real-world problems like payments, like sensible investments, like loans. Yeah, I mean, if you think about what do people use, they have savings accounts, they have checking accounts, they have retirement accounts. I think you're going to see that mass adoption where people get those traditional financial services from blockchains like the XRP ledger over that 3 to 5 year timeframe. As far as the TPS goes, you can sort of imagine a couple of different worlds. I think the least likely world is where the XRP ledger sort of stays stuck at the current TPS level, and then really only high-value transactions occur at the layer 1. That's kind of okay because obviously high-value transactions are where, by definition, that's where most of the money is, but that doesn't really like solve the world's problems. I think another version of the world is where it scales to very, very high TPS levels through sharding. So what you can do is if you have, instead of one ledger, if you have two ledgers and you have a transaction that executes here, and then finishes, you have the sort of 2 or 3 phase execution. So you can have thousands of ledgers that together we think of as the XRP ledger. And so yes, we may have to make 3 transactions instead of 1, but we have thousands of ledgers to do it on. You can even have sort of ephemeral ledgers that you use for a short period of time, and then you throw them away. So let's say you want to have a ledger that had 10,000 transactions per second. It was somewhat centralized. But if you're going to throw it away after a week, it doesn't really matter. Like if it doesn't work, you just don't use it. And it can't steal assets from you because you have to move assets onto it. But I think the more likely world is scaling through things like ZK rollups. I think that's what most people think is of what's going to happen. So layer 2 through ZK rollups will allow that type of scaling. But we'll see. Everybody's working on it. Everybody understands that we need to scale better, and all of these techniques are being explored throughout the industry. We don't have that much time, though. I think we have maybe 2 more years before we got to figure out. But there's a lot of work going on.
I think we have 2 more years we have to figure out, right? 2 more years. Seems to me like at that point we have already entered the new financial system, right? Where everything needs to be scalable, guys, to handle large volumes at that. Okay. Next point.
We should think about it as like one thing is going to take away from another. Maybe one thing is going to slow down another's growth, but the whole DeFi ecosystem right now is like $120 billion.
Right.
And even just small portions, just specific things like loans or specific things like treasuries in TradFi are trillions of dollars. I think access to these assets, including stablecoins, is going to be a long tail of assets where liquidity between them is going to have to be through some sort of a neutral asset. But it's going to be interesting to
which is XRP. So XRP is basically targeting directly or indirectly all these different industries with large market caps from billions to trillions, right? This is how it targets all the money.
see. I think there will be competition between cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. I think the scariest situation for cryptocurrencies, like the bear case for cryptocurrencies, is like one stablecoin takes over the world.
As the XRPL's core protocol evolves to support high-scale liquidity for tokenized assets and payments, how do you envision the role of retail users versus institutional players in maintaining the XRPL's decentralization and liquidity health?
So decentralization and liquidity are kind of different. Decentralization, I think everybody wants decentralization. Even the institutions that are coming to layer 1s, they want them to be decentralized. They don't want them owned and controlled by their biggest competitors, which is what would happen. So I don't think there's a tension there. I think that's good. I think that's going to work out really well. Liquidity, my very first vision for the XRP ledger, as soon as we had the idea for issued assets in a DEX, was this idea that you could have pools of liquidity that were open and neutral that anybody could contribute to and draw off of. I'm looking forward to both enterprises, institutional players, retail users, developers, and ordinary people contributing to pools of liquidity and drawing off them on a level playing field. I knew the Forex business and international.
There we go, guys. Right, it's all going to be on a level playing field and probably earning passive income from the liquidity that you could provide, right?
So I think it's time to move beyond Bitcoin and meme coins into real-world assets that exhibit fundamental utility.
Indeed, guys. That's where we're heading to. The fountain for today's video comes from Eleanor Tourette. As I reported in the Crypto America newsletter this AM morning, the Banking Committee will hold a full committee hearing on market structure next week, and it will take place on Wednesday, guys. The witnesses so far include Brad Garlinghouse will be attending. Ripple has infiltrated the current financial system, I repeat, and we're about to take over. I have fear of missing out. Oh my lord. No, I need your advice. But anyways, that's what it is. See you.